And welcome into the Sports Shuffle. It is November 16th. We are going into week number 11, and we still don't know what is actually going on in the NFL. I am Flying Ryan Gokers, along with
Tampa Motor Mouth Joel Verone. I think I saw a good clip. It was from The Family Guy where Peter goes into a sports book, places $100 down, and they go, "Do you want to? What team do you want to bet on?" And he goes, "Yeah, just take it." Yeah, fairly accurate, I think, for this season.
yes, an upset wild week number 10. We will be recapping here shortly. Some big injuries after this week. A couple possible season enders.
Yes.
One definite season ender. And we'll get into all that here
Yeah,
in a
because
little bit.
if I can break at least one of the injuries, because all of a sudden I had heard about another tight end. I won't because I don't want to steal too much of your thunder, but I have to bring up Dallas Goedert because all of a sudden he wasn't injured going into easily as much as the day before yesterday or right after all of the football because nothing was really filed or posted. So I was thinking, okay, he's doing pretty good. He's a solid performer on my third league. I tend to call it the alternate league, and all of a sudden, I'm turning on. It's about 5, 6 p.m. yesterday, and I'm turning on Sirius XM, and the first thing they go, Dallas Goedert's going to the IR because of shoulder injury for extended time, and that's like you're about ready to sit down, take down, doing that. All of a sudden, I'm just like, what?
Oh boy. Dallas Goedert out with a shoulder injury. Happened on a play. He fumbled the ball with a face mask penalty that was not called. He would have been hurt whether they called the penalty or not, so that's not the discussion here. Going to be out for at least 4 weeks. They're going to want to make sure he's 100%. The Eagles are pretty much guaranteed to have at least some kind of a playoff situation going on later in the year at now 8-1. The last undefeated team to have lost. So 72 Dolphins celebrate that. We'll get more into that game here in a little bit. Before we go too far, Joel and I had a little rematch of the championship game in the 16-teamer, and it went the same way as the championship game did last year.
GG flying as you layeth the smacketh down on me quite handily.
Led by Justin Jefferson and possibly the greatest catch I have ever seen. Joel losing by about 40 points. Joel 4-6, still in it because fifth place is 5-5. I'm 8-2, pretty much guaranteed to be in the playoffs in that league at this point, but still an absolute dogfight between fifth and Joel, who is 13th. It is 5-5 for 5-11, and then 4-6 at 12 and 13. So still a chance there.
So you're saying there's a chance?
Saying there's a chance. Joel is now in ninth. In the 10-team Sports Shuffle Fans League, I moved up to 7th, but we were both at 4-6. Top 6 make the playoffs. So both still technically in contention there, even though neither one of us has been lighting it up as of late. So
getting lit up maybe rather than lighting it up.
Yes. Yeah. I'm having a pretty good year. My worst team is 9th place right now, and that team is two games out of first. So that's a very, very tight league. Still a lot of work to do. One more month.
I'm trying to figure out if I'm channeling Denny Green, if you want to crown their ass, or Jim Mora playoffs. Are you kidding me? I just want to win a game. So I'm trying to figure out who I'm resembling more right now.
Well, we got 4 more weeks to decide things, Joel. A game out of both of those, and I mean, I've got the board behind me. Some of these teams are surefire locks. Some of them kind of need to get a little bit going in the next couple of weeks just to make sure they get in. But 4 more weeks left in the fantasy football regular season, then playoffs, and then we start looking towards the end of the NFL season, and that's not a fun time for anybody. So you mentioned Dallas Goedert as a potential. They say not season ending, so he should be back. I don't know if it might be fantasy season ending. Because if he's out 6 weeks, that means he's going to be out until week 16, week 17. Much. So that could end his fantasy football season if you have him.
Because I'm wondering, should I drop him?
If you have an IR spot, probably better to hold him, but it also just kind of depends on where you're at. Tight end injury that will end the season is Zach Ertz. Knee injury. He is done for the season. They confirmed pretty quickly right away he was out, and then on Monday, knee injury. He is done for the rest of the season.
Another injury that I know is close to you as a manager, Mr. Cooper Kupp.
I have no Cooper Kupp this
Okay.
year, and as of right now, I am very happy about this. As unfortunately for Cooper Kupp,
I could have sworn and thunk that you did.
no, he never lasted to me. I always would go on Justin Jefferson if I had the choice. But Cooper Kupp, high ankle sprain, going in for surgery, already put on the IR. That is a minimum of 4 weeks. They're expecting closer to a 6 to 8 week recovery. And for a Rams team that's 3-6, that's basically shut him down, get ready for 2023. So, dynasty owners, if you have Cooper Kupp and it is not past your trade deadline, maybe you can trade him injured to a team that's rebuilding, got a piece you want that's not quite as good. But if you are in the middle of the pack, you're probably stuck with Cooper Kupp. Obviously, redraft, he is borderline droppable. Need a little bit more information because you don't want to drop him, then he comes back in 5 weeks or something. But tough blow for the Rams, who now rely on Allen Robinson, and that's not a place you want to be.
Yeah, just everything has gone so far south for the Rams since they lost in the disappointment bowl with the Bucks. And the Bucks have been going in the opposite direction. As all of a sudden they just seem to be gelling and becoming more of a team, and the Rams are just falling apart at the seams.
Yeah, so let's go over some other big news from the last couple of days. Devontae Adams limited in practice with an abdomen injury. Probably nothing to be concerned about. He's likely going to still play, but limited on Wednesday is not the best way to start the week. John Wolford, who played in place of Matthew Stafford, has a neck injury, but Matthew Stafford, full participant today, looks like he's going to be clearing that concussion protocol.
Pretty big as far as if you've been riding P.J. Walker, who hasn't looked too bad for the Carolina Panthers. He out this week. And guess who's starting?
Guess who's back?
Baker Mayfield with
Baker's
Sam
back.
Darnold backing
your
him
Ravens
up.
defense.
Good God.
Yeah, play your Ravens defense. We'll get more into what I did with to get the Ravens defense in my final thought, because it's a longer story than that. Zeke Elliott, limited practice today. Hopefully going to be back this weekend. Tony Pollard's been very good as the solo back, but hopefully Zeke comes back. Mike Williams on if he will play Sunday, maybe. Keenan Allen, if he will play on Sunday. These are both their responses, I hope. So both are expected to practice this week, and hopefully we'll be back for that Chiefs game. If not, it's probably not going to be a very good Sunday night football game. The Chargers, back-to-back weeks on Sunday night football.
One has to imagine Juju is in concussion protocol after that absolutely very scary hit.
Yeah, Juju was KO'd on the field in concussion protocol, almost certainly going to be out this week. Ron Rivera says Carson Wentz has been cleared to start throwing, but they haven't designated him to return to practice. So that means another week start for Tyler Heineke, who definitely deserves it after his performance last week.
Because anybody who has more than one brain cell knows that Taylor Heineke gives the Commanders a better chance of winning than Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I would agree with that, seeing how they played the last few days and the last few games with him, but it's all about the money sometimes, so we'll see if that's what happens. Michael Gallup, no concern, did leave the game briefly against the Packers, but no concern for the Cowboys long-term. Jonathan Taylor, off the injury report in full, had a very big game against the Las Vegas Raiders over the weekend. Still no Jamar Chase at Bengals practice, not a huge surprise, but somewhat surprising is Najee Harris popping up with a knee injury. Don't know the severity.
Which might explain his less than suboptimal performance in recent days.
Yeah, might not be the best situation for Najee Harris. Jaylen Warren looks like he's going to be a good pickup potentially this week. For the only kicker story I can remember, Josh Lambo has been signed to the Tennessee Titans as Randy Bullock is out. So if you have Randy Bullock, you're going to want to pivot to somebody else. David Montgomery did not practice for personal reasons, but Khalil Herbert now on the IR, out for at least 4 weeks. That greatly increases the value of David Montgomery. Of course, Justin Fields has been lighting it up. You got to think, once teams start saying, we're going to do everything we can to shut down Fields, Montgomery could explode.
You just look at Justin Fields' last 5 finishes. It's just heads and tails above where he was at the start of the season.
Yeah, it's a whole different team. Cole Kmet, another one of those people early season, you were saying drop him like it's hot. There's no hope. Back-to-back 2 touchdown weeks. He has a thigh injury, did not practice, but I believe he's going to be good to go. Gus Edwards has a shot of coming back this week. Mark Andrews did practice today, so hopefully he will be able to go this weekend for the Ravens as they play the Panthers. Dennis Allen, the head coach of the Saints, is a complete moron. I don't know if anybody's noticed that. They're going to start Andy Dalton and said Jameis Winston isn't 100% healthy, and he doesn't know if he will be. And another direct quote about Marshawn Lattimore. Dennis Allen getting back Marshawn Lattimore. I certainly hope so. He's battling through an injury that he's trying to recover from. Because if you're injured, most people don't try and recover from it. Yeah. Dennis Allen needs to be fired. I don't think he lasts after this season because he has been terrible.
I know, because there's lots of talk about Nathaniel Hackett. There was about Josh McDaniels, but not so much now. I think that you saw the rather curious, interesting story that Davis actually said he's coming back in 2023, and there was a report behind that saying that the entire motivation for that is not altruistic, and it's because the Raiders don't have any cash. They may even be still, I don't know if they're still paying John Gruden or not because for a cause, but yeah, so they don't have a lot of cash to just sort of give out and say, okay, you're fired, hit the bricks, and yeah, here's some money so you can go have some fun while you're at it. So they're going to keep them on. And I can imagine that Raiders local talk sports radio is probably a little bit spicy this week.
A little bit. Jared Everett, groin injury this week, is expected to practice in some capacity for the Chargers. Josh Allen opened with a limited practice, but did play on Sunday in what ended up being one of the games of the year. So no real worry there. Let's see, where else next? Oh, the Cardinals have a weird tradition forming. When someone goes out, somebody comes back. When Hollywood Brown went down, it was right at the end of the Hopkins suspension. He came back. Now Zach Ertz is down, and it looks like Hollywood Chance has a chance to play this week coming off that foot injury. That would be a big boost for a Cardinals team. Pair him with Hopkins and Rondale Moore. That could be a very interesting situation. A.J. Brown rolled his ankle on Monday night, but says he'll be fine, should be good to go over the weekend. And Jerry Jeudy, day-to-day with the very, very bad-looking ankle injury, but looks like he will be just fine. Couple surprising waves.
Is there any concern because you saw that pretty big hit that actually knocked Justin Herbert out for a little bit, not completely out of the game, but he absolutely got rocked unbelievably close towards the halftime. He had to go in the tent, came back out, but still very scary hit, and you just have to wonder if he needs to be monitored at all going forward.
With the increased protocols, I don't think so. A couple of surprised waived players, both picked up by the Texans. Wide receiver Amari Rodgers for the Packers, second round pick, I believe it was, or third round pick. He gone. He went to the Texans. And even more surprising, Eno Benjamin, who was starting for the Cardinals a couple weeks ago when James Conner was out, was waived by the Cardinals, picked up by the Texans.
So with the Benjamin acquisition by the Texans, if you are a Dameon Pierce owner, how worried are you 0%. About his usage?
Nope, none at all. I think that is just an insurance back in case something happens to him. Maybe they don't feel confident if Rex Burkhead had to carry the full load, but there's no risk to Dameon Pierce's goal.
Plus, they're also the Texans, and they are horrid.
Yeah. Njoku hopefully going to be able to play this week. Let's see. The return of David Johnson to the Saints.
Do we just give the World Series of Suck title just to the Texans and it's like, here you go, you guys are just so bad this year? I mean, they always seem to be in it a little bit. They always seem to fight, but they always seem to lose.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. That doesn't always work. So, Saints released veteran running backs Jordan Howard and Derek Gore and signed David Johnson. So that's a bunch of old getting switched around. Randall Cobb designated to return from the IR, and Christian Watson, who had a monster game on Sunday, is back at practice already, full participant today. So that was a lot of injury talk already. And
And non-injury talk, it's kind of interesting how the 49ers, after you had CMC with that really big week, that they seem to be scaling back his role so he's not being like the juggernaut that he was that one week.
yeah, Elijah Mitchell, 18 carries this week. It was against the Chargers, who were bad against the run game. But the mentality going forward is it's going to be 50-50 split in touches. That being said, the passing game work will go through Christian McCaffrey. So if you're in a PPR, he's got more value. And he's probably going to get more touchdown opportunity. But in deeper leagues, you can pick up Elijah Mitchell. A lot of people dropped him after the CMC trade. He might be someone you can pick up, play in your flex, and be good. Remember, San Francisco mimics the Dolphins, the Dolphins mimic the San Francisco 49ers system, and you're seeing Mostert and Jeff Wilson be fantastic. You saw CMC and Elijah Mitchell be very good last week. Not great, but very good against a decent Chargers defense, and it's going to work that way for a while. Now, if one of them gets hurt, expect the full roll to the person who doesn't get hurt.
Yeah, so shall we look at some of the recaps on some of the recraps, depending?
All right, let's start with the Falcons-Panthers quickly. Panthers 25-15 win on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah.
Cordero Patterson disappeared, but Deontay Foreman very, very good. And again, no PJ Walker this week. It will be Baker Mayfield going up against the Ravens. So get your Ravens defense and put it in your lineup because it's going to be very, very good.
That's a defense
Deontay Foreman is
raving about next week.
Deontay Foreman's had two very good games, both against the Falcons. This is a different breed of bird. It's going to be a different result for him. Then we go across the pond for the first time to Munich, Germany, where the Buccaneers found their offense just a little bit. Rachaad White looks fantastic as the number one running back for the Buccaneers. They win 21-16 over the Seahawks in a game that got a little closer than it should have at the end. Leonard Fournette did get a touchdown. Chris Godwin, first touchdown of the season. Julio Jones with the other touchdown for the Bucs. Tyler Lockett with a touchdown for the Seahawks. Kenneth Walker, not his best game, but still very good this week. And the Bucs come home on a bye week, 5-5, first place in the NFC South by a full game over the the Falcons. Both teams suck, so I mean, bad birds is bad birds. And the Buccaneers going to the bye. Seahawks also go to the bye, also in first place in their division. That one's going to get uncomfortable, though, I think, with the 49ers coming up behind them.
Yeah, because definitely the moment of the game had to be when Rachaad White gave the stiff arm. Just absolutely a thing of beauty. Because I'll tell you, even though I picked the Seahawks and the pigskin pick 'em in me was definitely sad, but by the result of the game, the Buccaneers fan in me was definitely happy. It's nice to see a rejuvenated Tom Brady actually celebrating and getting happy, and you sort of see a more positive vibe coming from the Bucs as opposed to when Brady was throwing the tablet on the sideline and getting pissed and chewing out his whole offensive line. So this is the Bucs we tend to like to see. As Mr. White had a $105, 22 carries, and gotta wonder about Leonard Fournette's injury. Speaking of injuries going forward, but yeah, White's going to be somebody. If you could have gotten him with the waivers this week, definite must to at least try, because Tampa Bay is probably going to be considering him an RB1 going forward, and one has to wonder how much time, if any, will Fournette miss. And going forward, you sort of have to wonder. The Bucs can be Mr. Heckle and Mr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Just going forward, which one will show up which week? But I just tend to think it's sort of feels. I hope I'm not wrong. They sort of have taken a good turn as opposed to a bad turn, going the right way, not the wrong way. So maybe they just needed to get out of the country. I mean, I was actually talking about the game to my mom, and my mom's like, "Why don't they just stay in Germany? They seem to be doing better out of the country than in the country." So who the heck
Yeah.
knows? But good job, Bucks. Good job, TB12, and it's just nice to see them back and winning.
Tom Brady, first quarterback to win in 4 different countries, 4-0 in international games. And the Bucks do come home first place in that division. They will be in first place no matter what happens this week because they have the tiebreaker in hand against the Falcons.
The NFC South seems to be channeling the NFC East from last year.
The good news for the Bucks is that they look like the favorites in that division, which means a playoff berth. Then you never know what can happen once you make the dance. The bad news is for a team that's got a 45-year-old quarterback who kind of needs to start looking for the next great quarterback of the future. That means a draft pick probably in the 18 to 24 range, and that does not help. Especially if they make a deeper playoff run, that's even going to make it worse. So, all right, we'll move on to possibly the game of the year so far. The Vikings come from behind 33-30 overtime win over the Buffalo Bills. Dalvin Cook, an 81-yard touchdown. Justin Jefferson, almost 200 yards receiving and a touchdown. Josh Allen playing with that injured arm. It didn't look to be bothering him. He did have some turnover problems, including, the worst fumble of his career, I'm going to say. Justin Jefferson, possibly the greatest catch of my lifetime. The goal line stand for the Bills that the Bills tweeted, "Ball game!" And then Josh Allen fumbles in the end zone, recovered by the Vikings to give the Vikings a 30-27 lead after being down 27-10. Bills go back, get the field goal. Vikings win the coin toss, and Buffalo fans cringe because they lost the coin toss. Vikings only go down and get a field goal. Josh Allen drives him down to the field to about the 20-yard line, then throws a pick in the end zone to end this game. The Vikings move to 8-1. They're now going to be tied on top of the conference with the tiebreaker going in favor of Philadelphia, but tied to the top record-wise with the Eagles on top of the NFC. The Bills, with this loss, fall to third place in the AFC East. That is a big fall. We mentioned 1 bad week, 2 bad weeks, and drop you from first place in the conference to out of the playoff picture, and the Bills nearly do that through 1 week.
Yeah, that was just absolutely brutal for the Bills. I actually picked the Vikings. It's something I actually managed to get right this week. Woohoo!
Yeah,
But
he did better than I did.
But still, without a doubt, one of the catches of the century where Justin Jefferson definitely rolled a 20, and the game of the century easily as it's just like you have all the talk about, okay, are the Vikings for real? Let's look at some of the teams that they end up beating, and you talk about the double doink, and you talk about this team or that team, but this cements them as legit. Now you just better hope and pray that the very first time that they are in prime time or a late game slot, that they don't yak it up and yak it away and all of a sudden revert back to prime time or playoff Kirk Cousins. So it's just, but man, while this happened, and the other thing to take away from this game, fantasy wise, the trade actually did him some good as TJ Hawkinson has at least 9 targets and 11.5 PPR points in both games. As a Viking, he has had 4 red zone targets, one end zone, and during the stretch, and he's looking to be maybe the third best fantasy tight end for the rest of the season behind two names that you definitely know and are familiar with, Mr. Kelsey and Mr. Andrews when he's healthy. So, yeah, so if there's any chance you kind of had to trade him before the deadline, I doubt he's on anyone's waiver wire, but if he is, for any reason, grab him while you can.
Yeah, TJ Hawkinson was really excited to go to Minnesota because they could start winning some games. And since then, the Lions, they haven't lost a game. Lions beat the Bears 31-30. Justin Fields looks like a thing in fantasy and the NFL. He looks like a quarterback who's going to be a monster to deal with, at least for the foreseeable future. Somebody might figure him out, but the Bears offense looks a lot better than they did to start the season. But the Lions behind Jared Goff and Jamal Williams win this one 31-30. Both of these teams, I mentioned the Bears had playoff aspirations, but Justin Fields, never mind. This loss, I think, really, really hurts that opportunity. The Lions moved to 3-6. They actually moved to third place in the NFC North over the Bears, who are now in last place. Cole Kmet, though, looks like he's going to be a viable weapon as well. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamal Williams, very good for the Lions.
As despite practicing in full on Friday, DeAndre Swift was clearly not fully healthy. Swift was outgained by Justin Jackson and only had one more touch than Jackson in week 10. As you mentioned already, Jamal Williams had nearly 3 times as many carries too. Swift is nothing more, I think, than a flex play until his workload increases, as 6 carries and 3 targets can only get stretched so far in fantasy football. Because when he started out the day, actually in the freaking negative, he was like minus 0.40 points. It was ridiculous. I mean, he improved to something like 8 points. It was just not the normal output you would expect from DeAndre Swift. He needs to heal. He needs to get healthy. He needs to get back to his normal self. And yeah, I think even if that means sitting out some more, I don't know if playing more or sitting out more will help him, but it's just sad to see such an incredible player just put out this kind of productivity.
Yeah, you got to wonder if he's not, still trying to get back into healthy. The Lions have another lost season on their hands. They're trying to avoid being in the top 5 picks. Obviously, Dan Campbell's trying to save his job. So if you can get DeAndre Swift on the field, he's going to do it. But Jamal Williams has been great. I think you kind of let him go. Let Justin Jackson be that backup. Let Swift get healthy and hopefully move forward 100%. Speaking of guys who somewhat disappointing. Next up, Chiefs Jaguars. For everybody who drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire this year and had started so well, oh boy, has it fallen off a cliff. 4 snaps, not 4 carries, not 4 catches. 4 snaps on the field this week. 0.0 catches, 0.0 yards, 0.0 carries.
Classic Star Trek Next Generation quote. There are 4 lights. No, okay, that's something else.
Yeah. 0.0 productivity from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Isaiah Pacheco, 16 carries for 82 yards, has taken over the starting role, and Jerick McKinnon is the passing down back. So we're going to talk more about Clyde in the final thought, what you should do with him. But the Chiefs do win the game 27-17. Pat Mahomes, 3-touchdown game. Christian Kirk for the Jaguars, touchdown. Kadarius Toney, first NFL touchdown for the Chiefs in this one. Travis Etienne, not a terrible, terrible day. Chiefs move to 7-2 with the Bills lost are now first place in the AFC. The Jaguars fall to 3-7. They are not first in the AFC. In fact, they are 14th, only ahead of the Raiders and the Texans in the AFC. Looking like an early draft pick once again, but this team looks like they're starting to compete more. Going 27-17 with the Chiefs is not a small accomplishment for a team like the Jaguars.
Because Jacksonville is just definitely an enigma. They continue to constantly struggle. Even the few games they won, they just haven't been able to get either running or passing game going anywhere near consistently. They have a long way to go, short time to get there. The season is slowly but surely ticking towards the middle and past the middle. And when you're dealing with going up against a good team like the Chiefs, it's just hard when you're always playing and struggling from behind. So one has to wonder what their plan is going forward with the capital that they have to spend, because already, one could argue they're having a better year than last year, which
Absolutely
isn't saying much. You don't have a too high a bar after the Urban Meyer era that was an utter unmitigated freaking disaster. But they're still just a team that you just every time you try to put your confidence in them, they let you down. Granted, the Chiefs are a juggernaut, but still.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville is definitely a team on the rise. Trevor Lawrence is starting to look a little bit better. Still making some mistakes, but better than he did last year. Travis Etienne looks like he's going to be a good player for this team. The wide receivers they got in the offseason look good. And don't forget, they traded for Calvin Ridley at the trade deadline coming back next year. That could be a big, big pickup.
Oh, Etienne was a definite disappointment this week in fantasy, big time. You're looking at the numbers and going, what?
Yeah, it's a disappointing week, but a pretty good result overall on the season. We'll hopefully get some more out of him going forward. But the Jaguars do lose this game. The Chiefs, again, solo first place in the AFC with a 7-2 record. The team immediately behind them, I think, put together their scariest performance of the season. That is the Miami Dolphins, 39-17 win over the Cleveland Browns. You might say, oh, it's the Browns. That Browns defense has been very good. Tua with a
Hey,
91
just remember what they
QBR.
did to the Cincinnati Bengals recently.
Yeah. Tua with a 91, 92 QBR for the week quarterback rating. That was 40 points cleared of the next best quarterback that the Browns have played when they've played the Browns. So Browns defense is legit. What was terrifying about this one is Tyreek Hill held in check. Jalen Waddle
Oh,
held in
yeah.
check.
Don't
Best
I
fantasy wide receiver for the Dolphins was Trent Sherfield. He didn't go off.
don't I know
Jeff
that
Wilson and
Don't I
Raheem
know the
Mostert.
Tyreek Hill pain? I started him. That's another one. It was just one a weird week out there. As you're kind of going like, huh? At just certain fantasy results, you're just like, what? You
Yeah,
got
wide
that's
receivers
not
are
normal.
inconsistent. Wide receivers are inconsistent. All the greats have a bad week or two here and there. So Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, down weeks. But Jeff Wilson Jr. looks fantastic since the trade from San Francisco. Raheem Mostert, massive, massive games for both of them. Tua still 3 touchdown passes, and they shut down
Well, that was like
Tyreek Hill and
that
Jalen Waddle.
was clearly click back to the Bucks game just recently. If I may, before we continue with the Browns and Dolphins, it was just clearly with the Bucks that it was a Chris Godwin game script, not a Mike Evans game script.
Yeah, I mean, Godwin has his best game of the season. Evans was still involved, but just not as heavily. But again, the Dolphins winning that game
Click
on the ground.
back to the current game.
Yeah, Dolphins winning that game on the ground against the Browns says something that this team can win, even if you take away option 1 and option 2 in the passing game. Nick Chubb ended up with a good performance. Did have a fumble that kind of had him in the negatives for a while, depending on your scoring format, but ended up being a pretty good start. Amari Cooper cannot play on the road, so if he is
Oy,
playing on the road, do not play him because he's
that's
averaging about 2 points a game.
that's another one that was a disappointment.
Yeah, 2 to 5 points depending on your scoring format on the road, and he's averaging in the mid-teens, high teens, low 20s if he's at home. But Donovan Peoples-Jones looks like the guy who's going to pick up the slack on the road, so maybe there's a dynamic to play there. Cleveland gets Buffalo in Buffalo this week, and it could be an all-out whiteout. So keep the weather in mind in that one. This could be one of those weird weeks where you don't want to play Josh Allen.
Sponsored by Elsa, as with the Browns Dolphins game, the person that I think surprised everybody. You had all these disappointments. Cooper, you had Tyreek Hill out, and you were going, "Wow, where are the points, bro?" As the points were all. How about Jeff Wilson, who outproduced Raheem Mostert in week 9, and he was rewarded with a workhorse role in week 10. We saw it. He had 17 carries for a buck 19, and he also ran for 17 routes and was targeted 5 times. He is definitely a high-end RB2 going forward as the starting running back. And if you started him even in a flex position, you were probably going, "Hey," you said, "This is unlike some other players." Cough, cough, Cooper. Cough, cough, Hill. Cough, cough, Etienne. This week, he actually had output.
Yeah, Jeff Wilson Jr. has become the starter for this team. The Dolphins go on bye, so your Tyreek Hill is your Jeff Wilson Jr. is Jalen Waddle. They're going to be on your bench this week. But if you want to look at the waiver wire for Jeff Wilson Jr., he is still available in a quarter of leagues. Just have to make sure you search by the name because he's going to have a projected 0 points this week with the bye. Again, Dolphins 7-3, second place in the conference as of right now. Jets on a bye. If the Jets win next week, they would actually go to first place in the division, regardless of the Bills' result. And that's something I don't think we would have expected. They play the Patriots. We move on. Giants 24-16 win over the Houston Texans. The Giants move to 7-2. They're now a game behind the Eagles in first place in the NFC East, and they are currently the 5 seed as the number 1 wild card. The Texans fall to 1-7-1. Dameon Pierce, not his best game, but still got the job done. Saquon Barkley, 35 carries, over 150 yards and a touchdown. That is a massive, massive performance from Saquon Barkley, but it was really the biggest fantasy output for him all season.
Yeah, with just the Texans, it's hard to tell based on their weekly outcomes, but they're actually playing hard. They're getting better, but it's just they have such a pathetic roster and so much uncertainty at some key positions that they need to find a quarterback and at least 1 or 2 more good off seasons to be more competitive with the teams in the league. Otherwise, it's just going to be some more of the same SSDD every day as just the Texans are just so absolutely brutal to try to have any confidence in picking, I think, even ATS.
Yeah. Well, against the spread, they keep the games close. They cover a lot more than you would think. The Giants 7-2. They haven't played the Eagles yet. They do have another game against the Cowboys. They've got some tests on the horizon. The Commanders are still coming up, who have had a few good weeks in a row. So we'll see if this Giants team is for real or they're feasting on a weak schedule going forward. But right now, 7-2 looks like a confident, competent playoff caliber team. Only time will tell as we go through the last 7 or 8 games of the season. Speaking of not playoff competent winning teams, the Pittsburgh Steelers win 20-10 over the New Orleans Saints. Andy Dalton looks terrible. There's not a whole lot here other than Chris Olave is not getting the work he should be getting with Andy Dalton. Alvin Kamara was awful this week.
Very, very rough day for AK managers.
Yeah, not a whole lot of fantasy goodness in this one. The Steelers moved to 3-6. They are not going to make the playoffs in the AFC, but they're a very prideful team. This defense did look a lot better with TJ Watt back. Hopefully for the Steelers and the Steelers fans, they can keep that defense going. Let Kenny Pickett be in some close games and work on the pressure situations. The Saints 3-7, still only 2 games out of first place in the division, but for all intents and purposes, this team does not look like a playoff team right now. Not a whole lot to talk about in this one.
Yeah, because the main thing you already mentioned, Najee Harris dealing with the timeshare with Warren, but Kenny Pickett actually had his best game of his career for whatever that's worth going forward, throwing for $199 and rushing for 51 yards and a TD. Still has 9 turnovers in 5 games, and when Mike Tomlin is calling that growth impressive and that Pickett appears to be the future of the Steelers, they're probably going with the Wolverine meme and the picture that Wolverine is looking at is Ben Roethlisberger in his prime. So absolutely, completely brutal day for the Saints. Yeah, I definitely agree. I would be surprised if Dennis Allen comes back as a coach again next year after this absolutely god-awful performance. It's really showing what a difference Sean Payton made when he was the coach of the team.
Yeah, Dennis Allen, a career about 30% win percentage, so he needs to go. All right, now we go to the best defense in the NFL, the 3-6 Denver Broncos, losing to the Tennessee Titans 17-10. There's a stat out there: the Broncos would be 7-2 or 8-1 if they scored 18 points every week. That is how bad this offense has been, how good the defense has been. Derrick Henry, his worst week of the season against, again, the top defense. You can kind of see a down week coming for Derrick Henry this week. Again, not a whole lot of fantasy production to talk about here. Westbrook Ikhine for the Titans had the long touchdown pass. That was pretty much it. Jerry Jeudy is day-to-day with that ankle injury. Cortland Sutton, I don't know. There's just not a whole lot for either of these teams if you take Derrick Henry out of play, and that's what they did this week.
Yeah, it's a very sort of a puzzling situation because you tend to have a lot of people who wrote the Titans off in the offseason as Derrick Henry, of course, aging. They lost some key players that are led by A.J. Brown and seem to be getting harder and harder to win as a lower-scoring, run-oriented team. Yet, somehow, some way, they are in control of the AFC South once again. And on the flip side of the coin, it's kind of funny if you think about it that when Denver traded for Russell Wilson, yet everyone was like probably giving them applause and kudos and everything and all that. And it seems that you give them a realistic chance, to win the AFC West. But despite all that, despite all the off-season additions they made, Wilson included, most notably, guess what? They're still likely to come in last freaking place in the division. So all of that machinations, and you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Yeah, the Broncos 3-6. They're not last place in the division. We'll get to that team here next. But it looks like their aspirations of making a run in the playoffs, they're dead and buried. Moving on, Colts 25-20 win over the last place Las Vegas Raiders in the AFC West. Surprise starter Matt Ryan back And
Oh,
maybe it was Matt Ryan coming back that set things off, or maybe it was Jonathan Taylor being completely healthy for the first time in who knows how long, just sparking this offense. The Raiders they looked like the Raiders. The Colts looked as good as they've looked all season, but it's still a lot to be desired when you only can beat the Raiders by 5 points.
Yeah, as Jonathan Taylor finished as the RB1 after running for a buck 63 and a TD, his best game since week 1, as the Naheem Hines trade opened up a huge role for Taylor going forward, as Jonathan Taylor completely took over the passing game work. Or to quote The Rock, finally, Jonathan Taylor has come back to the NFL. So yeah, that's just nice to see after he had the injury that went on as long as it did. It was just nice seeing him back out there, whether you had him, whether he was playing against you in fantasy. It was just sort of nice to see as just a little bit of a normality restored. As the other thing was normal is that the Raiders really suck. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah, unless you were going up against Jonathan Taylor in fantasy, you were probably happy to see him back as a fan
Yeah.
of the NFL, or if he's on your roster, of course.
Are you ready for a sports audible fun fact?
Oh, let's go.
Matt Ryan has a longer run this season than all of these players because he has a 39-yard run versus the Raiders.
Before you finish that stat, he had a 39-yard touchdown run and finished the game with 38 rushing yards. Go ahead.
All right. Are you ready for some of these names?
Longer rushing. This is a longer rushing attempt than these names?
Yes, than these names.
Okay.
Josh Allen,
Ooh,
Najee Harris,
that's not
Aaron
surprising.
Jones,
Ooh.
Miles Sanders,
Yep.
Joe Mixon, David Montgomery, A.J. Dillon, Ezekiel Elliott, Alvin Kamara, Jalen Hurts, Raheem Mostert, Kareem Hunt, Daniel Jones, James Conner, Leonard Fournette, Melvin Gordon, and Damian Harris. This is from CBS Sports.
Yeah, there's a lot of names in there that are fantasy relevant. Now, Joe Mixon, in his defense, the end zone got in the way of a few of those. But surprising, Josh Allen hasn't had one that long. He had a few long touchdown runs. Again, the end zone gets in the way sometimes, and they're just not that far out. But impressive to see some of those names. But Matt Ryan, I guess you can call it a touchdown amble because he was not running real well. But hey, they got the win. They have gotten all of their wins with Matt Ryan. Maybe this is what they need to do just to stay in that playoff hunt. All right, this would have been the upset of the week had we not gotten to Monday night. Packers 31-28 win over the Dallas Cowboys. They figured it out. Give the ball to Aaron Jones. Let the defense suck down to stop the run, and then throw over the top of them. Christian Watson, 3 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers, all 3 passing touchdowns went to Christian Watson. Had his best game of the season, both of them. Aaron Jones got a lot of work. A.J. Dillon was decent this week. They figured something out. The Cowboys have a good defense. So this gives Packers fans hope that their wild card aspirations are not shot, given they are a game and a half behind San Francisco for that 7th seed right now. It is an uphill battle, but losing to Dallas, they'd be 3-7. They'd be completely dead. They'd be battling with the Bears for the cellar of the NFC North. This at least keeps the faint glimmer of hope on the horizon for them. The Cowboys, though, have to look at this as a missed opportunity. CeeDee Lamb, his best game of his career, minimum of the season, but of his career. Dalton Schultz with a touchdown. Dak Prescott played very, very well. Tony Pollard good in relief. So disappointing loss for the Cowboys. I think if you look at that, losing to the Packers this year, that's not something you are really proud of. The Packers, though, look like they figured something out. And if you're a fan of the Packers, maybe that's a good thing.
Yes, Aaron Jones definitely gashed the Cowboys, firmly cementing himself as the clear RB1, as the Packers seeing 70 snaps compared to just 38% for A.J. Dillon. If you had started him anywhere in fantasy football, cough, cough. As if you took the best attributes of Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, you'd have Aaron Jones. So, yeah, you're probably scratching your head if you either started A.J. Dillon, or you're probably scratching your head if you're where the Cowboys going. How did that happen? As that was definitely a surprise, as I'm sure the expectation was that the Cowboys were going to come away from this game, even though it was in Lambeau Field, because the Packers haven't exactly been themselves. And now all of a sudden, Aaron Rodgers actually has a target and has someone to throw to. Hey, they're starting to look like their former selves again.
Yeah, maybe this is what the Packers needed. Is just, I mean, they looked good against the Bills a couple weeks ago and lost, and this big win. So we'll see how the Packers do going forward. They are still alive in the playoff hunt. If they can pretty much win out, they probably have a spot for sure. But only time will tell if they can do that. Next up, the Rams are done. 27-17 loss to the Arizona Cardinals. Both backups in this one actually played surprisingly well. James Conner had a good game. DeAndre Hopkins is fantastic. Rondale Moore looks like a possible threat on the Cardinals. We'll see about Hollywood Brown coming back, but with Zach Ertz going down, I don't see his role going away. Rondale Moore, that is. For the Rams, they don't have a running game. They don't have their best wide receiver going forward. Matt Stafford, coming off a concussion, still has that elbow problem. The defense is not looking like they were. The Super Bowl Rams are dead, and I think that's all we can really say about the Rams is they're pretty much done for.
Yes, how about James Conner rushing 21 times for 69 yards, 2 TDs, and playing 65 out of 71 snaps? Conner immediately vaults into RB1 territory while healthy and is a decent buy before the trade deadline. And as you mentioned, Matthew Stafford still in concussion protocol, so there's a possible chance he's not playing in Week 11, which I really tend to think it doesn't really matter much for the Rams since stick a fork in them.
Yeah, the Rams right now 13th in the NFC, wedged between the Detroit Lions and the Carolina Panthers. Not two teams you want to be wedged between in the standings. Then we move to Sunday Night Football. 49ers 22-16 win over the Los Angeles Chargers. Both teams exit this game 5-4. Right now, the Niners are the 7th seed in the NFC. The Chargers fell out of the playoff picture to 8th in the AFC. As of right now, all 4 AFC East teams are playoff bound. As of this moment, there's obviously a lot of times that change. But the 49ers looked great behind the running duo of Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey. Brandon Ayuk still looks like the number 1 wide receiver, which is terrible if you have Deebo Samuel. George Kittle didn't have to get involved much in this one. Justin Herbert. I don't know what you do if they until they get Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. It's hard to really pass judgment pro or con for Justin Herbert. It's hard to be good when you don't have anybody to throw it to.
Especially hard to be good when you get your bell rung too.
Yeah, all that being said, it looks like he had a decent chance of winning this game, pulling an upset. He did get hit hard, missed the last few plays of the first half, but was fine. He came back into the game. I think actually the helmet spinning on his head helped him out a little bit, taking that blow laterally instead of going into the skull. But the Chargers, 5-4, they're doing what the Chargers do, and that's not win close games.
Yeah, because right now Justin Herbert continues to struggle with only one top 10 quarterback finish since week 4. Herbert has also had the 4th most interceptions since 2020. The dude needs his main weapons back stat. Seriously.
Yeah. Anyways, let's move on to the Monday Nighter. Washington 32-21 win over the Eagles. The stat of the night was the time of possession. Washington, 40 minutes and 24 seconds of possession versus the Eagles, 19 minutes and 36 seconds. Controversial call ends this game on a unnecessary roughness on a play that Taylor Heinicke goes down to give himself up. It was the right call by the letter of the law, maybe not in the spirit of it ended the game pretty much, but there are people very upset with Devontae Smith's last-second hook and lateral fumble touchdown for the Commanders, but not a good week for any of your Eagles. Jalen Hurts had one of his worst games of the season. Miles Sanders, only 12 carries for 54 yards. Quez Watkins led the way in receiving with 80 yards. Devontae Smith, 39 yards and a touchdown on 6 catches, but that costly fumble late. Dallas Goedert looked good before he got hurt. So, but the Commanders, interesting fact here, they don't even have NFL.com's jacked up. They don't have Brian Robinson's rushing numbers on here. They have Antonio Gibson, Curtis Samuel, and Tyler Heinicke, but not Brian Robinson, who did score a touchdown in this one. So, good on you, NFL.com statistics. You failed me.
#fail.
Yeah, he failed once again. With this win, though, the Commanders 5-5, eighth right now in the NFC. They look like a team that believes in what they're doing. Obviously, Eagles still first place in the conference via that early season win against the Vikings on Monday Night Football, but 8-1 and 8-1 at the top of the conference. The Giants only a game back in that division means the Eagles could quickly fall down the standings if they lose the wrong games. The Giants keep things going.
So nice. It's very nice to see this as we don't have to hear about can the Eagles go undefeated for the rest of the season anymore. So yeah, Dolphins.
No, they
Dolphins
can't.
pop their champagne. Yippee ki yay! We don't have to hear about this narrative anymore. Thank God. And interesting to note that in 4 games with Taylor Heineke, it's nice to see Scary Terry back again as he is an elite 29.7 target share, averaging 92.5 yards per game, 6 receptions per game, and is a WR8 as long as Heineke's starting. Scary Terry is a definite WR1. It's nice to see him ascend back to that status as opposed to earlier this season. Just yeah, you're kind of scratching your head, going, "Did the Commanders have any fantasy options that are really out there?" And all of a sudden, Terry McLaurin is emerging once again. Very nice to see, and also kind of nice to see the Eagles get deflated a little bit.
Yeah. Antonio Gibson leaving with an ankle injury late could be something to watch if you have Brian Robinson. All right, let's move to Thursday Night Football right now. Tennessee going to Green Bay. The Titans right now the 3 seed in the AFC 6-3 going to play the Packers 4-6 at Lambeau Field. Packers coming off their best offensive and pretty much complete team performance all season. Face a team that gives up big passing plays. You saw Christian Watson make some big passing plays, but Tennessee, this should be a bounce back week for Derrick Henry as the Packers do not have the best run defense at all. I believe Green Bay is favored in this game, which a little surprising, but Titans a lot to play for. They're coming off of not their best week. Do get the win over the Broncos because the Broncos offense sucks, but who gets the win here?
I think you would have to go with the better run game, as yeah, you had Aaron Jones really tend to gash the Cowboys, but you tend to think that when you're talking Aaron Jones, you're talking Derrick Henry. I tend to think the more massive weapon is definitely Derrick Henry, and I think just that little bit, and with how mortal the Green Bay Packers have been on a whole this year, I think it's kind of crazy to pick Tennessee to go into Green Bay and to beat them. But I think Green Bay is extremely beatable this year. I think it'll be a close game. It's no guarantee by any stretch of the imagination. Everything is a toss up this year, but with all the fields of probability, and also plus it's a prime time game, so you tend to think most people would think Green Bay should win. They're at home, but what usually happens, especially on Thursday night football games, usually the reverse team tends to win. I'm going to go with the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, this is the Helmet Bowl behind me. I've got a Packers on one side, Titans on the other. I'm going to take the Titans to win this game. Derrick Henry has to get going for the Titans. You think Tannehill coming off that injury is going to be a little bit better. Traylon Burks coming back off of IR going to improve. Robert Woods is still there. So I think the Titans are getting a little healthier. You'll see that offense start to go. And that defense has been a lot better of late. Green Bay did take a step in the right direction. I feel a lot less confident about this game now as I did prior to seeing the Packers beat the Cowboys last week. But all of that being said, I still have faith in Tennessee to be the better team here. Derrick Henry is an absolute weapon that can just win a game on his own. Usually after he has a bad week like he did last week, he comes back with a vengeance. And I think he's going to do that this week. Hopefully a close game on Thursday night. Hopefully we get some offense. But that being said, I'm going to take the Titans as well. And with that, it's time for final thoughts. Joel.
My final thought this week is okay, how about let's look at who's out for this week for wide receivers. No Tyreek,
Oh boy.
no Waddle, no Evans, no Godwin, no DK, no Lockett, no Christian Kirk. So who's hurt? You already mentioned some of these. Cup, Jamar, Mike Williams, Juju, Judy, Keenan. My final thought is, when it comes to wide receivers, week 11 will definitely be, as Bugs Bunny would say, interesting. Boy, setting fantasy lineups is going to be fun. And that's my quick final thought.
Yeah, this is not going to be a fun week. I know I've got a dynasty league where I've got Khalif Raymond and Adam Thielen in my starting lineup because I have Evans and Lockett on bye. You can't do anything about the bye weeks. You just have to roll with them.
How many people will be putting in Paris Campbell as a WR1? Boy.
Hopefully not as a wide receiver one, but he does seem to be good. All right. This is going to be a little bit of a fantasy strategy session / what did I do? Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been horrific pretty much all season. You take away his touchdowns outside of the first 2 weeks, I don't think he's got a game above 4 points in standard scoring, probably about 6 or 7 in PPR. He's droppable. In fact, this week he was on my bench in the league, this 5-5, a little too serious up here, the 7-play team. He was on my bench. Monday I let, oh man, my Seahawks defense is going to be on bye next week. Dropped Clyde Edwards-Helaire for the Baltimore Ravens defense playing the Panthers. And when I did it, I remember texting my brother-in-law saying, I really hope my opponent picks up Clyde Edwards-Helaire and puts him in their lineup against me this week because I fully think I laid a landmine on the waiver wire. And as it turned out, that is exactly what happened. So my opponent now has taken the guy, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I dropped for a defense last week. I later dropped the Seahawks defense and got Elijah Mitchell. That was my plan the whole way. Bid more than they could, so they had no shot at that one because Elijah Mitchell had 18 catches. Clyde Edwards-Helaire played 4 snaps. So I either dropped a bomb on the waiver wire that's going to blow up in my opponent's lineup this week, or I dropped a bomb in my opponent's lineup that's going to blow up in my face. This one I think is going to work out for me. I'm hoping, but you can drop big name guys who aren't performing, and they can come back and be better attributes for your team or better assets for your team failing on the opponent's lineup. So here's the Clyde Edwards-Helaire's continued decline down the depth chart. Long live Isaiah Pacheco. Long live Jerick McKinnon. And long live Pat Mahomes throwing and running the ball like crazy. Long live Clyde Edwards-Helaire finding a nice piece of bench to curl up on and stay there for hopefully the rest of the season because he is no longer on that team. And that is a 7th place team at 5-5 that desperately needs a win this week because only 4 weeks left until we have the fantasy football playoffs. And I don't want to miss a playoff on any of these teams, let alone that one, because that one comes with a nice little toilet trophy that is right there. Unfortunately, I still own that for a few more months. All right. So with that, that's our time. Sports Shuffle. I am Flying Ryan Gilchrist along with
Tampa Motormouth, Joel Verlin.
And we'll be back probably Friday, I think Friday, to go over the rest of week number 11 to talk about what happened.
Friday, got to get down on Friday.
Okay. We'll talk about what happened in the Packers-Titans game. Should be a good one, probably one they expected to be more top team versus top team than it is, but still two very good teams, very good matchup.
At least it's not a good team versus a team that sucks or both teams that suck.
Yeah, we're not looking at Broncos, Colts, or anything.
Or Atlanta and Carolina.
Well, that's at least supposed to be a decent game. I mean,
well, when you had both kickers miss point after attempts, basically, I think it went back to back.
Carolina and Atlanta in a tropical storm was not great.
Not at all.
Also, keep an eye on that weather report for this weekend. I did mention this could be an interesting week to not play Josh Allen. If it is horrifically snowing, there's a good chance there's no passing in that game, given Josh Allen can run, but keep that in mind. If they get 3 to 4 feet of snow, that's a lot.
Well, that game sponsored by the following songs, Let It Go and Do You Want to Build a Snowman?
Yeah. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. And if you have any of those players on your fantasy lineup, you're saying hell no, hell no, hell no. That being said, Josh Allen, we'll talk more about that next time. But this could be an interesting week where he just has to sit because the weather's so bad. We've seen it elsewhere. Also, Deshaun Watson back at practice today. day. He is eligible to come back on December 4th against the Texans. His practice window has, though, reopened. And sneaky stash in some places.
I'm surprised ESPN hasn't come up with a specific channel directed that you get to see Deshaun Watson eat lunch, dinner, and breakfast and practice live 24/7.
I said a week ago, keep in mind that he's coming back. It could be someone you want to stash. I've started grabbing him in some places where he's just floating around. Whether or not he ever makes my starting lineup, I don't care. At some point, someone's going to need a quarterback, and Deshaun Watson will not be available to them. That is something. That's another bonus final thought. Don't let Deshaun Watson be the team that be the guy that beats you in the playoffs. Joel, I picked him up in the 16-teamer because Aaron Rodgers has been bad. I picked him up in the Mega Bowl team that is 17-3, first place in my division. Picked him up because Aaron Rodgers has been bad. So I picked him up in my Family Feud, my 7-3 team that is just destroying people. Because Lamar Jackson could get hurt, and I don't want somebody else in a 12-team league to go, wait, I just got Deshaun Watson, who is very, very good at football. We'll see if he is. He hasn't played in 2 years. But back at practice, something to keep an eye on, and maybe time to start thinking about that deep, deep stash for the next couple of weeks. As he comes back, he plays Houston in Houston, the ultimate revenge game. That'll be interesting, but we'll get to that here in a couple of weeks. Anyways, that's it. So anything left, Joel?
Nope, not other than there was a very fun clip on Twitter where they were interviewing Coach John Tortorella live, and they said, "Coach, how are you doing tonight?" And his response, "We suck." Gotta love Torts.
Yeah, brutally honest. Yeah, with that, we go.